All right, we gotta get going. We are. Is this? I just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. Okay, now people. Okay. We are beginning. We are on the Daf. We are on Daf Chavtas Amud Beis. We're starting at the very, very last line. We're doing Daf Lamed, and let's see how far we can get. The Gemara says the Mishnah had said that one of the. Wait, no. I'm sorry.
I could be wrong, but I marked this down on page 30.
No, yeah. I'm sorry. This is not the right page. Sorry, yeah, 1 second. Yes, you're right. We're on 30A at the bottom. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the bottom, or whatever. We're 2 lines after the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said that that one of the takanas Rabbi Chanan Spivak had made is she yom henaf kulo asar, that the day of waving the omer is all asar. Now just remember that all grain is an issur called chadash, that all grain that is harvested this year cannot be eaten until after Pesach. So any grain that's being harvested right now on a biblical level, at least as the way the halacha would apply in Eretz Yisrael. Let's leave Chutz La'aretz out. We'll leave the diaspora out for now. But in Eretz Yisrael, the any grain that is harvested today, for example, cannot be eaten until the second day of Pesach, on the 16th of Pesach. On the 16th of Pesach in the morning, they bring a korban omer. They harvest that omer on the 15th of Pesach, right before. It's actually docha yantef, whatever it is. They're allowed to do everything they need to get that omer, that grain on the 15th, on yantef itself. They get it on the 16th in the morning, meaning it's the first day of what we call in Eretz Yisrael Chol HaMoed Pesach. In here, it's the second day of yantef, but in Eretz Yisrael it's Chol HaMoed Pesach. They bring that as a korban omer. Once that's brought in the morning, that grain offering, it's barley. Once it's brought, then all the grain that was harvested since the last Pesach becomes permitted. That chadash, that new grain, now becomes yashan, old grain, and anything that's going to grow from the 16th onwards, from Pesach until the next Pesach, is going to be prohibited now until the next Pesach comes. So we're always 1 year behind in eating the grain. That all was the halach when we had a Beis Hamikdash. Today, when we have no Beis Hamikdash, so Rabbi Chanan Spivak made really the halacha should be with no Beis Hamikdash that the second the sun comes up in the morning on the 16th, it all becomes permitted. Rabbi Chanan Spivak said it doesn't become permitted until the end of the 16th, meaning basically the beginning of the 17th. It doesn't come permitted. So meaning he prohibited it for 1 extra day. He moved the day up a day. So the Gemara says, my time, what's the reason that he did that? So it answers, Mehera Yibana Beis Hamikdash v'yomer ishtaked milo achlana misheher mizrach achshav nami nechol v'lo yodei di ishtaked lo have omer heir mizrach hiter. So the Gemara says that why did he prohibit the 16th day? Really, in the morning of the 16th day, once it's Olas HaShachar, once the sun comes up, all that grain should be permitted. But he took that day down also. He said the 16th is also going to be prohibited until the 17th. Why did he do that? Because God willing, the Beis Hamikdash will be built this year, and they'll say, hey, last year we were allowed to eat grain on the 16th. People are not going to realize that last year, the reason why you were able to eat grain from the morning on the 16th is because there was a Beis Hamikdash and they brought the korban omer, and then the korban omer allowed the domino process to occur. But since there is no korban, I'm sorry, the opposite. People aren't going to realize that last year there was no Beis Hamikdash, and since there was no Beis Hamikdash, the process of allowing it is by the sun, not by just by the day, the sunrise, and not by the korban. So therefore, this year, God willing, even though there'll be a Beis Hamikdash, they'll say, hey, the sun's up, we can eat the new grain. And really, it's not true. They can't eat the new grain when the Beis Hamikdash is built until a korban's brought. So he's afraid that people are going to start eating the grain a little bit early before the korban's brought when the Beis Hamikdash is built, and therefore he prohibited all day of the 16th. The Gemara says, yeah, but this year, Hashadiika Omer Matya. So the Gemara asks, The Mivdei Amos. When would the Beis Hamikdash be built that this is going to be a problem? Now, it's actually very simple. It's just to get the prereq for this, and it's pretty simple to work out. What do you call it? If the carbon omer exists, meaning the Beis Hamikdash is there, you can't eat it until the carbon omer is brought. If there is no Beis Hamikdash, you can eat it already by the morning. What would people do in the diaspora that did not know what time when the Beis Hamikdash is built? Let's say in America, they did not know did they bring the carbon omer yet? Did they bring the carbon omer yet? So they were all allowed to eat it from chatzos because the assumption was by chatzos that carbon omer would have been brought already because they were very, very quick to bring that carbon omer. So the Gemara says, when is the Beis Hamikdash going to be built? If you're going to tell me that it was built, it will be built, God willing. The Beis Hamikdash will be built on the 16th itself. It will be built the day after Pesach, on the 16th. So it says, if it's built on the 16th, then comes the time that the carbon omer that the Beis Hamikdash is built. The carbon omer, the new grain is already permitted by virtue of the fact that it's the 16th. The sun came up and there was no Beis Hamikdash. So meaning if the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built, the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built before the if the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built on the 16th and the sun is already going to come up before that, so then it's already permitted even without the Beis Hamikdash. If it's going to be built on the 15th, so the day before the 16th, or any time before the 16th, so then why did Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai have to prohibit it the whole day? You only have to do it from chatzos, and then it's going to be permitted in any case, just like it would be in the diaspora, as we're about to say. From the chatzos and on, everyone was allowed to eat from the new grain because we can assume, no matter what locale we're in, that from chatzos, when the Beis Hamikdash was around, the Kohanim would have already brought the carbon omer. So they're allowed to eat the new grain from chatzos even without hearing a text message or any indication from Yerushalayim that they had brought the omer. They can assume by chatzos, by midday, that you are allowed to that carbon omer was brought and you are allowed to eat the new grain. So why did Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai prohibit the whole 16th day if the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built on the 16th? Then it's permitted from the morning. If it's going to be built on the 15th, it's for sure permitted by chatzos. What's the difference? So it says lo tzricha de'ivnoi b'chameishar samach l'shkiyas achama. It's, you know what it must be. He was worried that what happens if it's built right at nighttime on the 15th. It's very interesting that the Gemara does not. Oh no, sorry, the Gemara does not. Yeah. In the second answer, it does. In the first answer, it doesn't entertain that it could even be built at night, right before Shkia at night. So they don't have enough time to get it to get that carbon omer ready before the morning. Or it's going to be built at night. And therefore, comes the morning, it's prohibited. And it's just interesting. It's like that no one's going to hear about it, but it's prohibited. The new grain is going to be prohibited in the morning with the sun rising until they bring the carbon omer. But they're not going to be ready to bring the carbon omer by chatzos, and therefore people are going to wind up eating chadash early. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai. We're going to turn the page right now. B'shitas Rabbi Yehuda Amra. He has a whole different approach in Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He says that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai really holds like Rabbi Yehuda, that when the Beis Hamikdash is not around, you're not allowed to start eating chadash until the 17th, not the 16th. Meaning, again, on the 16th, if you had a carbon omer, the new grain will be permitted on the 16th after the carbon omer is brought. But in a situation like we have today, unfortunately, that there is no carbon omer, so there's a question if it becomes permitted by the morning of the 16th or it doesn't get permitted until the 17th. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that it gets permitted on the 17th. So the whole 16th day is biblically prohibited, not rabbinically. The Amar ad etzem hayom hazeh ad etzimo shel yom, because he learns from the pasuk until that very day. So it says v'kasavar ad ve'ad b'chlal, and the 16th is prohibited as well in the new grain until the 17th. So Gemara says, so he says that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai must agree with Rabbi Yehuda that the 16th is also prohibited, and that is why you're not allowed to eat the new grain on the 16th. Gemara says, is it possible Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai held like Rabbi Yehuda? They argue straight on. Did not. The Mishnah says, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, his king Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made a takana sheyom henaf kulo asar, that the whole 16th day is asar. And then you see Rabbi Yehuda argue. Rabbi Yehuda v'lo min haTorah hu asar. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, the 16th is biblically prohibited. Tichsiv ad etzem hayom hazeh. So the Gemara is asking, how could you tell me Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is agreeing with Rabbi Yehuda when we see here that number one, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai comes and argues with Rabbi Yehuda. Number two is that that it says that he had a takana that made it prohibited. So the Gemara says no. Hasam Rabbi Yehuda de Katoi. Rabbi Yehuda was actually making a mistake in the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. Iusav Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai midrabanan kama. Rabbi Yehuda argued in the Mishnah. He's vocalizing his opinion because he mistakenly he made a mistake in what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said. He thought Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was saying drabanan, that it's prohibited. Velohi. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai didn't mean drabanan. He meant it biblically. The Gemara says, how could that be? Hiskin katani. It says he made a takana. So Gemara says, no, doesn't mean takana like rabbinic. It says, my hiskin, darash v'hiskin. He fixed up the halacha. He brought out the drasha to say that the 16th is prohibited. And really, biblically speaking, no one holds that the 16th, without a Beis Hamikdash and without a korban omer, no one holds that the 16th is permitted in the new grain. It doesn't start till the 17th. That's the way the Gemara. That's two different opinions. If Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai held that the 16th is prohibited to Rabbanan, or it's prohibited daraisa, but in any case, the 16th winds up to be prohibited. Okay. Gemara says, originally they used to accept witnesses all day. So Basin opens up in the morning of what would be Rosh Chodesh. In this case, we're going to be talking about Rosh Hashanah. Basin opens up in the morning and they wait. And all day until Shkia, they'll accept witnesses. What happened? Pamachas, one time it happened. Shinishtawa Edom Milavo. The Edom came really late. Now, the assumption would be that the Edom would be traveling and getting there as quickly as possible, but really they'd be pretty much waiting already. By the time Basin opens up for shop, they would be sitting and waiting to give their Edus because they would just see the moon at night, get their travel, and ready to rock and roll by the morning. But it happened that the Edom didn't get there until late in the day. If in the Skalkal Levim Bashir, and the Levium messed up the shir. Now it's going to be talking about the shir. The Levium sing a song, which we say at the end of davening every day. They sing a song along with the Talmud, with the korban Talmud. There are two, just not take anything for granted. There are two korbanos that are brought in the Beis Hamikdash every single day: the Talmud Shel Shachar, the Talmud Shebein Abayim. Both of those are completely brought on the Mizbeach. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. There is a shir. There's the Levium sing a shir with each of them. They have a kapitel Tehillim that they sing with each of those. That song will change if it's a Yontif or a Shabbos, which is why on Yontif and Shabbos in Shul we say a different shir. Well, on Yontif we don't. Nisach Ashkenaz winds up saying the same shir as the weekday, but Nisach Asfard and the Nisach other Nischais, the Nisach Gra, they actually say a different shir. But in any case, they wind up saying a different shir. The Levium sing a different shir if it's Yontif or Shabbos. Now, the morning shir, we're going to see the morning shir. They never could take for granted that the process of being Makadesh L'Chodesh, of saying that it's Rosh Chodesh today, would be done by the morning. So every Rosh Chodesh, they sang the same shir with the morning Talmud. They sang the same shir as if it would be a weekday. But the afternoon korban Talmud, the afternoon korban that they brought in the afternoon, that the Levium sang with it, that would change because by then they would already know that it was Rosh Chodesh. Well, one year it happened, the Edom came after the afternoon korban Talmud, and therefore the Levium sang the wrong shir in the Beis Hamikdash. Hiskinu shelo yu mekablan el ada mincha. Therefore, from that point on, they made a takana that they're not going to accept witnesses after the korban Talmud Shebein Abayim until after mincha. Bimbo Edim Mina Mincha Lamala, and Mincha, we're talking about, I imagine Plaga Mincha. So we're talking about a couple of hours before Shkia. So, and if the Edim came from Mincha onwards, Imbo Edim Mina Mincha, I'm sorry, Imbo Edim Mina Mincha Lamala, Nogan also Hayom Kodesh or Lamacha Kodesh. What they would do is they would say, if the Edom did come, meaning if they, I guess they forced their way in, or even if they didn't accept they wouldn't accept their testimony. So at that point, they already declared today as being not Rosh Chodesh, tomorrow being Rosh Chodesh. If the Edom did come, they would keep the rest of the day as Yontif, and the next day is Yontif. The next day is Rosh Chodesh. When the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, so since there was no problem of messing up the shir, there was no problem of messing up the song to be sung with the Talmud. So he said you could accept it all day. It won't make a difference at this point, and they accepted the Kiddush HaChodesh all day. Now, if it was Rosh Hashanah, the assumption would be like this: you're walking in, it's the 29th of Elul, and you don't know if tomorrow, it's Shkia now. You don't know if is tomorrow going to be Rosh Hashanah or the next day going to be Rosh Hashanah. So they didn't know. They'd have to wait for the Edom. What did you do? So you stopped doing malacha. You would have to treat it like it was Rosh Hashanah until you found out for sure. So there'd be some years you would keep one day, and some days you keep 2 days. Namely, if it turned out that tomorrow was Rosh Hashanah, then the next day would not be Rosh Hashanah anymore. It would be one day of Rosh Hashanah. If it turned out that you waited and waited and waited, if it turned out that the Edom did not come, so you wound up keeping the 30th as Rosh Hashanah, so to speak, by mistake, in doubt, and then the 31st, which becomes the first, that day will be Rosh Hashanah also. They were not worried per se about the malacha, that they're doing malacha, because everyone had to stop anyway. But they were worried about them messing up the Levium messing up the shir of the afternoon. In order to avoid that problem, they stopped taking Edom from Mincha, so this way they wouldn't mess up the shir. Once they brought the Mincha, it was too late, and you were keeping both days of Rosh Hashanah anyway. So this way they would say that whatever that shir was. But once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, no one was saying shir, so they accepted it all day. Okay. The Gemara says, Ma kilkul levim l'shir. What does it mean that the Levium messed up the shir? So there's going to be two opinions what it means. What was their mess up? Gemara says, Hacha targimu. In Bavel, they used to understand the Mishnah as follows: Shlo amru shira kol ikr. They didn't say the shir at all. They skipped the shir. They were waiting and waiting and waiting. They didn't know what shir to say. They wound up saying no shir. Rabbi Zera amru shira shachol im talmud shabin abayim. Rabbi Zera says, no, that's not what occurred. They said the wrong shir. Rosh Hashanah, that day was a Monday, let's say, or a Tuesday, or whatever it was. They said the regular shir of the day, and they didn't say the Rosh Hashanah shir. Fascinatingly, on Rosh Hashanah, regular Nisach Ashkenaz does not have a different shir. We only have the regular shir of the day. This is again a difference in Nisach Ashkenaz and Nischais, but you see, there was a different shir. Amalo Rabbi Zera, Lahava Beret. Rabbi Zera said back to his he said to his child, Puk Tani Lahu. Okay, he says, look the way it's taught in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, they made it to kind of that they're not going to accept the Eidos after they brought the Mincha. Ella Kadeshie shows by Yom Lahakrav to medium Musafim V'niskehem V'lo Mashira Shalo B'Shibash. The Brisa says, this is a Brisa is quoting, they would not accept the Edom anymore from Mincha and onwards, in order that they would have enough time in the day to bring the proper Talmud, the Musaf, all the Nisachim, all the libations that come with that, Musaf, and say the right Shira, say the right song, without Shibush, without any mistakes. So now Rabbi Zera was of the opinion that they made a mistake in the Shira. Again, that's in Bavel, they said that they skipped the Shira. The mistake was that they just waited and waited and waited until it was too late to sing any song. Rabbi Zera said they sang the wrong song. So now Rabbi Zera is trying to promote his opinion, to advocate for his opinion, so they said the wrong song. Yeah, I'm especially Amar Shira Dechol. If you're going to tell me this, that they said the wrong song, meaning they sang the wrong song, they sang the song of a weekday, and really it was a Yontif. Hainadik is Shibush. The Brisa says there was a mistake. So then then it works with my opinion. Ella iyamras law, iyamras lomar klal. If you're going to tell me that they didn't sing any song at all, my shiba shika. What was the mistake? They didn't make a mistake in the song. It's the Brisa. He doesn't like the Brisa's terminology. The Gemara says, the Gemara answers this. No, since if they said no song whatsoever, that is definitely considered a mistake as well. So the Brisa would not be a proof one way or the other. Masiv. So again, it's a question: did they skip the song entirely, or they said the wrong song? Whatever it was, they messed up, and therefore they made a takana not to accept Edom from Mincha onwards. Masiv Rav Acha bar Huna, Talmud Rosh Hashanah Shachris. Now it's going to explain to you what happened. The Talmud of Rosh Hashanah Shachris Karv Kilchasa. They would bring the regular Talmud like they always would bring. This is what occurred on Rosh Hashanah. B'musaf Ma'u Omer. So meaning that, let's say Rosh Hashanah would fall out on a Wednesday. Shouldn't fall on a Wednesday. It shouldn't fall on a Thursday. Whatever it is. So they would wake up in the morning. They didn't know we weren't sure if it was Rosh Hashanah until today or tomorrow. Whatever it was, didn't make a difference. Even if we knew, we didn't. The Shachris, the Talmud and Shachar, the Talmud Shel Shachris, the morning Talmud Korban was brought with the regular shiur, with the regular song that they would do of a Wednesday, of a Thursday. That was always that way. But Musaf Ma'omer, what would they do at Musaf? They would sing that song with the Musaf. B'mincha Ma'omer, what would they do at Mincha? They would sing the song Kol Hashem Yachal Midbar. That's the song that they would sing at Mincha. If Rosh Hashanah would fall on a Thursday, which then the Mincha song is the same as the Shachris, meaning every time Rosh Hashanah any day Rosh Hashanah would fall out, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, except for Thursday, Friday, any day Rosh Hashanah would fall out, they would do the regular shiur of the morning, Hayom Yom Rishon, look in the Seder, whatever it is. They do the regular, which actually going to say on the next stop the other. They would do the regular shiur of the morning, and Mincha they would say Harinu Lelukim Uzenu. If Harinu Lelukim Uzenu is the shiur shel Yom of Yom Chamishi. So if Rosh Hashanah fell out on the fifth day, instead of repeating the song twice, they would say Loy Omer b'Shachas Harinu. They wouldn't say it at Shachas at all, because they were going to sing it again in the afternoon. So they would just not say it in the morning. On a Rosh Hashanah that fell out on a Thursday, they would not say the shiur they would not say that shiur with the morning korban. I'm not sure, but that's how it went. And in the afternoon, they would just say it because that was anyways it's shira. I'm sorry. They would say something else. They would say something else in the morning. Sorry. They would say this. Elama Omar Hasiros Miseva Shichmo. They would say Hasiros Miseva Shichmo, which is from Tehillim Pei Aleph. Yeah. And Vimbo Edom Achar Talmud Shel Shachar. If the Edom came after the Talmud Shel Shachar, Omer Harinu. Then they would re-say the shira of Harinu. And unless they even though that they would wind up repeating it at Mincha. Now the Gemara says it brought all this to tell you this, the following. The Gemara had at the beginning of this Gemara had a machlokas between Rabbi Zera and the Chachmei Bavel. If the mistake that they made that original year, the mistake that they made, the Leviah made, is that they skipped the shira, they didn't say the shira at all, or they said the wrong shira. It says, if you're going to tell me that whenever that they were not sure if it was going to be Rosh Hashanah today or not, so they would say with the Shachris, they would say the weekday shira, and if they found that they were wrong, so they were wrong. So then we understand how it says over here in this Mishnah that on Thursday you wind up repeating the shiur. If you're going to tell me though, however, on a day they weren't sure if it was going to be Rosh Hashanah, I mean the 30th day, namely of Elul, they weren't sure it was going to be Rosh Hashanah, they would just skip the shiur entirely until they found out for sure. My Omra, we're turning the page, my Omra v'koflo, what does it mean that they said it and repeated it? so the Gemara answers, Shani Hasam Deshir the Yomahe. So that's not. Hold on a second. So that is not a question because there it was specifically talking about Thursday, and there wasn't repeating it because it was the same as the day that they mistakenly said. Thursday was always the same. Thursday, the morning and the afternoon would always be the same. So they would always have to be a repetition. So it's not a proof from there. Give me 1 second. Okay. This is one long brisa that is going to I just want to go to sit. So the brisa is now going to go through all the different shiras of the week and explain to you why each shira was said. But we don't have the time to delve into all the. You can look at the article and see all the explanation between them all. But the Gemara says, Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Mishum Rabbi Akiva, Barishon Ma'u Omer. What did they say on the first day on the base of Mikdash? So they said, La Hashem Haaretz Maloa. They said, right, David Mizmor La Hashem Haaretz Maloa. This is what they said. So Al Shem Shekana v'Hikne v'Shalit Bo'olamo. That Hashem, that on the first day, Hashem was kana, he acquired the world and he gave over the world and he was the shalit, he was the absolute ruler of the world. So it works with that. You'll have to see how it works with that first kapitel Tehillim, but that's the reason why they said that. So that is the theme, so to speak. Those are the themes that are in that first Yom Rishon. B'sheni Ma'omer. What did they say on? What was the shira that they said on the second day in the base of Mikdash? And we say, right? We say Shir Mizmor Levnei Karach Gadol Hashem Mula Ma'od, right? So B'sheni Ma'omer Gadol Hashem Mula Ma'od, that Hashem is great and he's lauded, he's praised exceedingly. Al Shem Shechilik Ma'asav Umalach Aleim, that on the second day Hashem he divided his handiwork. What did he do? He divided the waters, upper waters and the lower waters, and he ruled over them. On the third day, they would say, Elokim nitzav b'adas kel. So on the third day, we say, Mizmor la'asav, Elokim nitzav b'adas kel. So, Al Shem shegila eretz b'chachmaso. Hashem, he revealed the ground with his chachma. Behechin teva la'adaso. And he created a place for his handiwork for the inhabitants. B'revi, in the fourth day, what do we say? So that's Kel Nekamos Hashem, Kel Nekamos Afia, Kel Nekamos Hashem, right? Al Shem Shabarach Chama Olavana. It's Kel Nekamos that Hashem takes vengeance. On the fourth day, what did Hashem do? Hashem created the sun, the moon, and the stars. So it's Kel Nekamas, Hashem takes vengeance is the shear of that day, because that Hashem created the sun and the moon, Hashem is going to extract retribution from those who worship the sun and the moon. B'chamishi, what did they say on the fifth day? So that's Lam Nezeh Chagiti Slasaf, Harninu Leilu Kemuzenu. Yeah. So Gemara says, Al Shem Shabara Ofos V'Dagim L'Shabeach L'Shmo, because on the fifth day we say that, and again you look at the theme yourself. But on the fifth day is that Hashem created the fish and the birds in order for that there should be so much to praise Hashem about. So there was a lot of praise worthy creations. So therefore, that is what we say on the fifth day. Bashishi, on the sixth day, Hayu Omrim, Hashem Melach Keus Lavish. Right? We say on the sixth day. It says Al Shem Shagamar Malachtam Umalach Leim, because he finished. Hashem became the Melach because humanity was created. He finished his handiwork, and it's Hashem became Melach. It's interesting. On the first day, he was a shalit. He was a ruler, an absolute ruler. On the sixth, but that was on the first day. Sorry, on the first day. On the sixth day, he's a Melach. That's the day that he became a Melach, right? Where he becomes a king. There's a difference between a king and a ruler. That's just something to know for Rosh Hashanah in general. A ruler is someone that is has absolute power. A king is only a king by virtue of the fact that he has subjects. If there's no subjects, there's no king. If, for example, if the entire country got together and turned their back on the king and said, we don't want to listen to you, the king, all the power of the king gets swiped out from under him. What is he going to do? He's just a single individual. So a king has kingship by virtue of having subjects. So on the sixth day, Hashem becomes that, and that is exactly what we do on Rosh Hashanah, where we crown Hashem as king, we accept Hashem's ruling. Even though he'd be a ruler without it, he'd be a Moshe, but in any case. Okay, Bashvi, on the seventh day, Hayu Omer Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbos. So why do we say that? It says Liyom Shekula Shabbos, because we're talking about a Shira for the time that's going to be completely Shabbos. The Gemara is about to quote a whole bunch of different stuff that are fascinating, that have a lot to do with Kabbalah, and some of it that's very well known. We sing Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbos because we're singing for the Yom Shekula Shabbos, for the time that's going to be in the future, what's going to be, all Shabbos. The whole time it's going to be Shabbos, whatever that means. So Amar Rav Nechemia. Rav Nechemia said, Maro l'chalei chachamim ben aprakim halalo. One second, I'm sorry. Where's Rashi? I'm just looking for Rashi, and it's so what Rabbi Nechemia disagrees. Says, why did he separate the seventh? Why did he separate the seventh day, the seventh Shira, where all the first 6 days we're talking about creation, the seventh is talking about the future. It's talking about the time to come when Mashiach comes, and it's going to be completely Shabbos, meaning that the world's going to be completely at its resting point. Why would he do that? Why did we in the Shira that we sing in the Beis Hamikdash, why are we bringing that Mizmor Shir Yom Shekula Shabbos? Why would we do that? And that one Shira was talking about the future, while the other 6 are talking about the past. Ella, he has a different take on it. And the funny thing is, almost everything's going to be the same until it gets to the end. Ella, the first is because again, Hashem he created the world and he ruled over it. The second day is indeed like creation, that he separated the waters and he ruled over them. On the third, he revealed the ground with his chachma, and he prepared an abode for humanity. On the fourth day, he created the star and the moon and the sun. And he's going to take retribution from those who worship them. On the fifth day, you're right, he created it's because of the way that Hashem created the fish and the birds in order for his praise. And just you're right, on the sixth is he created humanity and he finished his handiwork and he ruled over them. But Shvi, he said all this in order just to say that he disagrees on the seventh. But Shvi is not because of the future where the whole world will be at rest on the Yom Shekula Shabbos. It's going to be a day that's completely Shabbos. It's rather we're saying Mizmor Shir Yom Shabbos on the seventh day because Hashem rested on Shabbos on the seventh day, which seems pretty intuitive. The Kimiflagi b'Rav Katina, and they argue with Rav Katina. Dama Rav Katina. Now, we're going to see. This measure is going to come back a couple of times. That this is just fascinating and tremendously quoted in Kabbalah, and tremendous amount of Ramchal on this. But she's a alfei shane hava alma. The world is going to exist for 6,000 years. It's going to. The main thing where it talks about the first two, the second two, the third two, that Gemara is a Gemara in Sanhedrin. But it's going to talk about here stuff that you don't hear, the 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. It's going to talk about here. She's the Alfei Shane Hava Alma. The world's going to exist for 6,000 years. Chad Charuv. And then the 7,000th year, the world is going to be desolate. Right? Shenemar v'niskav Hashem levado bayamahu. That Hashem will remain by himself on that day. And that day is 1,000 years. So the Gemara says, Amar Abai, Trechar, it's not going to be one year of desolation. It's going to be 1,000 years of desolation, one day, but 2,000 years of desolation. Trechar, Shenemar, Yechenim Yomam, B'musfe the Shabsa, Yechenim Yomam. Chaynim Yomim. The pasuk says days. It's going to be, keep me alive on those days. So it's going to be 2,000 years. So, okay, it's going to get back to this, but meanwhile, it's taking a stop. B'musvei the Shabbos, the Shabbos Ma'omim. What was we're going back to the Shira again. What songs they sang? What did they sing with the Musaf of Shabbos? Amar of Anan bar Rava, Amar Rav, Haziv Loch. So that is, it's from Hazinu. It's the different parshas broken up of Hazinu. Hazinu, and then the first one starts with Hazinu. The second Aliyah sort of starts with Zachor Yemos Olam. The third starts with Yakiveyu. The fifth starts with Vayar. The sixth starts with Lule, and then the seventh is Kiyadin. So it's Hazinu broken up. The song of Hazinu broken up into these 6 parts. The Amar of Chanan Barava, Amar Rav Kedesh Chalukin Kan, Ka Chalukin Bebeis Knesses. So the same way we would break it up today, he said, that is the way that they would break it up. So that is what they sang on these 6 parts is what they sang at the Musaf on Shabbos. So Gemara says, B'minchasa, that's in the Musaf of Shabbos. B'minchasa the Shabbos Ma'omim. What did they sing at the mincha, the korban mincha on Shabbos? Amar Rabbi Chanan Az Yashir Umi Kamocha. They would sing Az Yashir and Mi Kamocha at mincha on Shabbos. So Gemara says, it says Az Yashir Mi Kamocha. Is it Az Yashir? Where does Az Yashir go over there? I don't have this clear. Oh, Rashi, there we go. That's pshat. Oh, and then they would sing 2 Az Yashir from the Shir Hayam and Az Yashir from the Eli Be'er. So they would sing Az Yashir and Mi Kamocha, and then the second Shira that was in Bamidbar. So they would sing those 3 with the mincha on Shabbos. So now we're talking about, let's just to refocus, we're talking about Shabbos. What was the shira that the Levim sang on Shabbos? At Musaf, they would break up Hazinu, the second to last parsha in the Torah, the shira of Hazinu, into 6 different parts. And at Mincha on Shabbos, that was at Musaf on Shabbos, and Mincha on Shabbos, they would break up, they would sing Az Yashir, they would sing Mi Kamocha, and then they would do the other shira that's in Bamidbar. They would do those 3 at Mincha. So the Gemara has a question. It says, Iboilahu, Hani Kula B'chad Shabbos Amar, do you mean that they would do all 6 parts of Azinu and all 3 of Az Yashir, Mi Kamocha, and the Shira Sheni over there? They would do all of that every single Shabbos, or there was a rotation of those? Or they would break it up one by one, Shabbos by Shabbos. The Gemara says, Tashma, let's bring a brisa. Ditanya. Amar B'Yosi, Adsha Rishon Omeras Achas, Shnia Chazer Shtayim. So it says, when the first one, in the time that it would take for the first one to be said, the second one could be said twice. It says, Shema Mina Kol Shabbat B'Shasa Amar Echad. So the Shema Mina, they would do a piece of each. So there was a cycle of 6 different shiras of Hazinu. So over 6 weeks, they would say the whole Hazinu, like in 6 different aliyahs. So week 1, they would do the first piece of it. Week 2, they do the second. And that was for the Musaf. And for the Mincha, they would do a cycle of Az Yashir, week 1, Mi Kamocha, week 2, then a second shira, week 3. Amar Rav Yehuda bar Idi, Amar Rav Yochanan. Okay. Aser Masois Nasa Shechina. Mikroi. We see that the Shechina took 10 different steps away from the base of Mikdash. It had 10 different stopping points away from the base of Mikdash. We see that from verses. Ukenegdal Gasa Sanhedrin. And the Sanhedrin had 10 different stops when it left the base of Mikdash. And that parallel those 10 steps. Gemara, and that we have in a tradition. Now the Gemara is going to bring. It sounds like it's almost irrelevant because It almost is. It's another piece. So as there are 10 different steps that that the Shechina took from the base of Mikdash, and we have verses about that. It went mikaporas lekrov. It went from the kaporas to the it went from the kaporas to the kruvim. Umikruv lekrov, and it went from one kruv to the next kruvim. The angelic figures. Mikruv lemifsan, and it went from the kruv to the Pasach, to the opening. Umimifsan lechatzer, and then it went from the opening to the chatzer, to the courtyard. Umichatzer lemizbeach, and then went from the courtyard to the mizbeach. Umizbeach legag, and it went from the mizbeach, from the altar, to the gag, to the roof. Umigag lechoma, and it went from the roof to the walls of the base of Mikdash. Umichoma lo'ir, and it went from the wall to the city itself. Umeir la, this window's blocking, lahar, and it went from the city to the mountain. Umehar midbar, and it went from the mountain to the wilderness. Midbar also v'yashvim koma, and from the wilderness it went the Shechina, we're talking about Hashem's presence, went back on high, and it dwelt in its place. Shenemar, and now we're going to bring verses. Elech va'ashiv el makomi. The pasuk says that that I will go and return back to my place. So how do we know all this? Mikaparas lekrov, mikruv lekrov, ukruv lekrov, and mifsan tichsev. How do we know that? Nodati lecha sham v'dibarti itcha me'al kaporas, because the pasuk says, I will make myself known to you, and I'll speak to you from on the kaporas, from on the cover of the ark. Uksiv, and then the pasuk says v'yirkav al kruv, that Hashem was he rode on the kruv v'ya'af, and it was on this angelic being vayaf, and flew. Uksiv ukvoda elokei Yisrael nala me'al kruv, and another verse says that Hashem's that the covenant of Hashem went from on top of the kruv. Asher hayah alav el miftan abayis. It went to the opening of the house of the base of Mikdash. So we have verses that said those three stops. And going from the Pasach of the bias, it went to the Chatzer. From the opening of from the entrance, it went to the courtyard itself. Tichsev, how do we know that? That it says that the Chatzer was filled with the covenant of Hashem. And from the Chatzer, from the courtyard, it went to the Mizbeach. How do we know that? Tichsev, Ra'isi es Hashem nitzav al Mizbeach. It says that it says, where's this pasuk? The verses and doesn't. I don't have the place where it is, but no, yeah. But either way, it says that I saw Hashem standing on the mizbeach, or mizbeach lagag, and then from the mizbeach, as we said, it went to the roof. Tichsev. How do we know that? Tov l'shevas al pinas gag. That the pasuk says that it's best to dwell on the corner of the roof. Umigag l'choma, and it went from the roof to the choma, to the walls. Tichsev v'nei Hashem nitzav al chomas anoch. It's that the pasuk says Hashem stood on the wall. Umechoma, from the wall, la'ir, it went to the city. Tichsev kol Hashem la'ir. Kol Hashem la'ir yikra, that Hashem called out from the city. Me'ir lahar, and it went from the city to from the city to the mountain. Tichsev v'yal kvod Hashem me'al toch ha'ir v'yamad al har Hashem mikedem la'ir. That it says that Hashem went from the city onto the mountain, and he stood outside the city. Umeharlam midbar. And from the mountain, it went to the wilderness. Tichsev tov l'sheves be'eretz midbar. So it says that it's best to be in the midbar. And from the midbar, from the wilderness, it went back to its place up on a high. Tichsev elach ashuva el makomi, that I'm going to go and return back to my place. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Shisha chadashim nisakva shchina liyisrael b'midbar. There were 6 months that the Shechina stayed with Yisrael in the midbar. Shema yachzu b'tshuva, because perhaps they'll do tshuva. Kevan shalo chazru, when they didn't do tshuva, it stayed in the wilderness waiting for Klal Yisrael. And when it didn't do tshuva after 6 months, Amar tipach atzman, says, that it's I'm done. Shenemar Eini Rishoyim Techlena Mois Avad Minhem V'Tikvasam Mepach Nafesh. Kind of, in a upsetness, it's I'm done with this. And so that is what happened to the Shekhinah. And the Gemara says Ukinagdan, as we said before, and corresponding to this, Galta Sanhedrin Migmara, the Sanhedrin also took 10 stops when it disbanded. The Sanhedrin being the high court, the Supreme Court of Yisrael, that took 10 different stops on its way out. Milishkas Agazis, now they originally sat in Lishkas Agazis, which is very important because in Lishkas Agazis, you can only really have a Sanhedrin Gedolah that can rule and paskin all dinei nefashos, paskin capital cases, and ultimate rule of all final decisions, Supreme Court style, that in Lishkas Agazis. Once they left Lishkas Agazis, they can no longer. They left it on purpose in order to stop any Beis Din from being able to paskin capital cases. They wanted that to stop when Galus got really bad and there was a lot of dispersion of Jewish people and a lot of averas that were happening and things were just going haywire after the destruction. They left Lishkas before the destruction. This is before the destruction of the Second Temple. They left Lishkas Agazis, which would stop every small Sanhedrin from being able to paskin capital cases. Milishkas Agazis l'chanas, so they went to Chanas, which was close by, but it wasn't in the Lishkas Agazis itself. Chanas liYushalayim, and then they left the Beis Hamikdash altogether, and they went to Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim liYavne, and then they left Yerushalayim, and they eventually went to Yavne. Yavne la'usha, we turn the page onto Lamed Aleph of the base. Yavne la'usha, they went to Usha from Yavne, Usha liYavne, and then they went back to Yavne. Yavne la'usha, and then they went from Usha back to they went from Usha back to Yavne, and from Yavne back to Usha. Usha Shafram, and they went from Usha to a place called Shafram. Shafram Beis Sha'arim, and from Shafram they went to a place called Beis Sha'arim. And Beis Sha'arim to Tzipuri, and they went from Beis Sha'arim to Tzipuri. Tzipuri to Tveria, and they went from Tzipuri to Tveria. Tveria Amukam Kulan, and Tveria was the lowest point. Shenamar v'Shafalta me'eretz to Dabri. Yeah. So Rabbi Elazar says sheish galos. He says there were only six galos. Shenemar ki heishach yoshvei maram kriya niskava yashpilana al aretz yagiena ad afar. He's arguing. He says from this verse you could see that there are six stops. What is it? How does it? I don't. It says that there were. I think that they only went into 6 exiles. That the what do you call it? The Sanhedrin only went into 6 exiles. And you see Rashi explains. Let's see. I have to go into it. Rashi says Heishach, because it says all these different words of exile. Heishach is 1. Yashbilana is 2. Yashbilana again is 3. Ad Eretz is 4. Ad Eretz is 4. Yagena is 5. Ad Afar is 6. You find that there's 6 different levels of galus of exile, the basic that Sanhedrin went into. Rabbi Yochanan, they were the last one was Tiberia. Umisham Asid in the Gal from Tiberia is where Hashem is going to rebuild the Sanhedrin. Where our galus is going to start. Our Geula is going to start from there. Shenemer. Hisnari me afar kumi shvi, that Hashem awoken me from where and He brought me up from where I was down, so to speak, and that was where I was awoken from my dust over there. And so the basic